It's funny. You have your speech, and then you listen to someone else talk, and then your mind starts just bouncing around like, man, you should talk about this, and you should talk about this because, man, that group that we had, and I remember Coach Kennedy was such a good influence on me because he had great balance as a leader, and I was an assistant for him. Golly, 13 years, so I know his stats, and things better than he does. But he really taught me about balance, about family, about having a foundation, a faith-based foundation, and just how to run a program the right way and have great balance in your program. And I knew he met with those guys, with Doug and John and Randy and Tim. And when I got the head coaching position, I called Tim and I said, man, Tim, I need that. And he was like, Steve, like, do you just doing it because coach did it, or do you really need it? I said, man, Tim, I promise you, man, I need it. We'll be there, and I'll be faithful to it. And, I think our groups ended up meeting Monday nights, 9 o'clock, Monday Night Football, no Monday Night Football. And I know they talk about that re-up book, but a lot of the time you come in there, and it was such a great, safe place to just let down your guard and say, hey, I'm struggling here. I'm struggling with this situation with my team. And I knew it wasn't going to be all over Murray, Kentucky. I'm struggling with this situation with my wife, or my brother, or my parents, or something in the community that's bothering me, And we'd be in there, and we may cover a Bible verse, or we may just be there to be able to just have each other and let's let each other talk. And so many of that, and that was like a surreal year that they're doing the documentary on. And something so small that came from a guy no one knows, right? No disrespect to my guy, Tim Perkins, you know what I mean? But outside of Perkins Motorplex, if you're getting, you don't really know him or Doug or Randy Tate, and these guys gave me the message really that I share with that team all year long, but I had the platform to do it. And I think one of the things I hated, and when I was in Ames, I never really had a group again like that, really until my last year. I found really two people that I started connecting with. But when you got home from those situations, from those meetings, like my wife always knew, man, something good happened. Like you came home just renewed. It's just the same. Like I compared this fall, I'd go watch practices 2-3 times a week. When I would get back home, man, I had a pop in my step. I just spent 3 days with Texas basketball, talking basketball, watching them practice, learning, trying to get myself better for my next opportunity. But when I would come home from these, men's groups, whether the last year that I was in Ames or while I was in Murray, man, there is a noticeable difference. And it was really, really big for me. Hopefully tonight I'll talk to you really about two things, just kind of tie in leadership and relationships, and be really leadership at the end of the day is, can you build real relationships with the people that are with you and beside you, not underneath you, with you and beside you and together. Everybody says, man, what did you learn in your year off? What'd you learn in your year off? And man, I've watched 50, 60 schools practice, and there's some great things, maybe come up with ideas that I'll take, but there's nothing basketball that's just like you just walk in, it just hits you. The biggest thing I learned, and Doug was just talking about, like family and your kids growing, is I don't know how many of y'all are married at home right now in this room and have children at home, but your wife's job, it is tough. Holy smokes. The day trying to take care of 3-4 kids, the good, bad, ugly that can happen in less than 30 minutes is unbelievable. And the biggest thing that I learned that I'll take forward going to my next opportunity is that when I come home, and I have pretty good balance, when I come home, we eat dinner, and I'm going to get the kids to bed. But then it was always just run to the other room and watch tape. no, man, I need to make sure I spend some time with my wife and watch this documentary or this Netflix, whatever it may be. And then when she says she's tapped out, I'll know what she means now a lot better. That, man, I'm exhausted, Steve. You got him, or I need a night, with my friends, or we need a date night. And I think that's the biggest thing that I really probably take away. And the hardest thing, and like Doug said, man, blink of an eye, they're 21 and 23. I've been coaching first grade basketball this year, having the time of my life. All right. And I'm just the assistant in like 2 different leagues. And the head coach told my wife the other day I'm the best assistant he's ever had. And so, but I've spent so much time with my kids that it's scary for me. And I'm pretty an open book. Now, I'm not like a kind of hide things. I just tell, like I'm scared from a standpoint of like how my kids are going to feel, how I'm going to feel. I've been picking my son up every day since August, and that'll be really hard on all of us, from that standpoint. So, but let me jump into this, some of this thing, when I talk about a couple things here, it's some of the things are going to fit you. And then some of the things are going to be like, man, this is an area I need to improve. But like I'm listening to Doug talk, and he's talking about, stop and sharpen the wood, right? Because you just go. And like when you hear a good speaker, or you read a good quote, or you read a good book, man, for that next day, tonight, man, we're all have these wonderful thoughts and dreams. But that ain't reality. Can you have the habits every single day for 200 days and not expect anything in return? You know what I mean? Can you stay true in building your foundation day after day after day after day after day of doing things the right way and not expecting anything in return until it's time? Because that's what happens. You hear something great, and man, for a week, man, we're all about it. And then you slowly it happens to all of us. Whether it's a good book, an inspirational movie. I was listening to Doug talk, and I wish I had a pen. There's 3 or 4 things I was going to write down and kind of and piggyback off. But I think that's a big challenge is, can you take a message from Doug, message maybe from here tonight, and stick with it? That was my old boss's thing, is like 30 days build habits. You want to start reading the Bible, be consistent in reading the Bible. You mentioned Proverbs 27. There's 31 chapters or books, or verses in Proverbs. Read it every day. And then on 31, January 31st, you'll have read the Bible 31 straight days. Now it becomes routine. Now it becomes habit. Now it's something ingrained in you. And you're starting to really get your foundation strengthened. I'll tell one quick funny story that I always tell when I speak. Doug's may have heard this before, but this is a long time ago when I'm at Southeastern Louisiana. I was in charge of the per diem, the money for the trips, and we finished eating and giving out everybody's checks and giving them their $10 each. And one player comes up to me and looks, and he's like, "Coach," he's like, "Man, I didn't order this." I'm like, "What you mean? This is your check?" I said, "You ordered chicken fingers, fries, and a Coke. That's what it says right here, right?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, No, Coach. That says I ordered chicken fingers, fries, Coke, and gratuity." "Coach, I didn't order no gratuity." So, anyway, couple quick things that I will say, because I don't know what anybody in this room does from a standpoint outside maybe Doug and Tim, but man, team building. Like, how do you really get beneath the surface? And one of the good things that I like to do, whether I'm recruiting a player, I'm meeting with hey, I'm going to hopefully have a job in 3 to 4 weeks. When I sit down with those players, there's a thing I call the H game. I need to know your history. I want to know the highlights of your life, the history of your life. I want to know what you hope for. I want to know who your heroes are. I want to know your heartbreaks, and I want to know your honey, And if you're really sincere, and I like to do that with teams, and you think about those 6 H's, you find a lot about people, And the more that you know about people, the more that they're going, and the more you invest in them, the more they're going to give you back. And then 2 books that I always like to recommend: Legacy. It's about the All Blacks, New Zealand rugby team. Terrific leadership book. And then Lead for God's Sake. It's a phenomenal book about a basketball coach. Um, Before I get into the story of Nehemiah, Dayton Moore. Kansas City is about 3 hours from Ames, Iowa. So I took our staff over there one time for like a leadership kind of weekend team bonding, staff bonding. And Dayton Moore is the GM of the Kansas City Royals, won the World Series in 2015, was with the Atlanta Braves during their stretch of winning 14 straight NL East pennants. And so I had some time to spend some individual time with him. And I said, man, what made Bobby Cox so good? Obviously, he was the manager during that time. What made Bobby Cox so good? And he's like, Coach, I'll be honest with you, man. It wasn't anything about the X's and O's. It wasn't about his game management. He was okay in those areas. He's like, but he was so invested in those players, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, et cetera, that they refused to lose for that guy. They were going to bat for that guy every single day. So that was the first biggest thing he told me. Second thing he said to me, he goes, when hiring people, 3 things that he needs to make sure to take place. Number 1, moral principles. Moral principles, number 1. Number 2, embrace diversity. Number 2, embrace diversity. And then the last thing, compete for each other. If they don't have those 3 qualifications, if they don't have them 3 prerequisites, they're not working for the Kansas City Royals. And I thought that was really impressive. And the last thing that he talked about, 7 keys to organizational harmony. And we can all use this. Family, business, team. Number 1, settle disputes quickly. You know, how many times you can tell stories about you get in an argument and you let it linger and linger and linger, and now it's become really big. Settle disputes quickly. Number 2, care more than anyone else. Be invested. Number 3, give people more than they expect. You know, that ought to be a prerequisite for everybody. Just don't show up. Give people more than they expect. Number 4, make sure you stand up for your own people. Because if you ain't doing it, who's going to do it? So make sure you stand up for your own people. Number 5, share the glory. It's not about you. Share the glory. We've all helped do this. Number 6, and this is huge here, remain calm in the eye of the storm. Because the storm is coming. At some point, it's coming. Remain calm in the eye of the storm. And the last thing, and I think this is probably the most important, especially the way things are going nowadays, emphasize one-on-one communication. I think that's really, really important. So I was really impressed. You know, he's a strong Christian leader, and I was really impressed a little bit of time, you know, the day we spent with him and the Royals. I'm going to talk about the Nehemiah passage and stay on your wall. The couple of things that I've always, quotes that I've always used, don't seek honor. Honor will find you. I think, man, especially college basketball, college sports, even business, right? Everybody wants the honor, right? Man, don't seek honor, man. Honor will find you, man. You hear people talk all the time, trust the process, stay the course, and just do the right thing, you know? It's funny, like the team that they're doing the documentary on, I had the best 3 senior leaders probably I've ever had collectively. 2 of those 3 guys averaged a combined 7 points coming into their senior year. And one became Defensive Player of the Year, and one became the OVC Tournament MVP. Okay? The other thing is we had a slogan, eyes up. You know, things get rough, things get wild, everybody's yelling, eyes up, stay focused. And there's a great story in Judges 7 about Gideon and the Midianites. And then, obviously, Nehemiah 6:3, I'm doing a great work and I will not come down. The biggest thing I'm looking at right now for me, personally, and somebody called and told me, hey, there's a great book, treat this like halftime, right? You've had a great run. This is halftime. Now you're going into the second half. And so my thought process going into the second half is success to significance. I've had great success. Tim talked about it. We won a couple championships at Murray State. We were ranked twice. And Iowa State, we won the Big 12 championship twice in 6 years. We went to the NCAA tournament 3 times. We had a lottery pick. We had a lottery pick at Murray State. We had a lot of great things. but success to significance. Wherever I'm at next year, how can I truly impact that community, that university, that campus, those people? That's my main focus. And so now, story of Nehemiah, I had never heard of it. And Kenny Roth, who he said was in his fire team, he said, the thing I hate about you getting this job and leaving Murray State to Iowa State was, man, I hate your leaving, because we're going to miss you here. But I'm happy for you two ways. A, you're going to make a lot of money. And then B, is your platform's going to be bigger. And you're going to have a chance to impact so many more people, And that's probably my biggest disappointment, not being fired from Iowa State, but not staying on my wall during my time there and not impacting as many people that I needed to from that standpoint. But so I'm in the hotel room. We're 21-0. We're about to be the last undefeated team in the country at Murray State. And Tim Perkins calls me up and he says, hey, you heard this story of Nehemiah yet? Because I think it's really good for your team right now and where you're at in your season. And so that's where it comes from. And the crazy thing about it is that you got a guy, Tim Perkins, calls me up one night and tells me that. And now there's a TV show. If you pull up your TV guide in Western Kentucky at 6:30 on Saturday nights, there's a TV show, Stay on Your Wall. And Tim Perkins is who did that. He gave me the message. I just relayed it to the team, and the team was so beautiful, I guess is the right word, and impactful that it just took off. And so the story of Nehemiah basically goes like this. Nehemiah, his hometown of Jerusalem, is just walls are torn down, fires, are just, the gates are being destroyed by fire, and his brother's like, hey, we need help. And so Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king. He was his right-hand man. And when he was by the king this day, the king noticed, hey, man, you're always upbeat, positive. Man, Nehemiah, what's going on, man? Why are you so sad? Tell me. And he said, King, man, my ancestors, man, my city's in ruins. It's being destroyed. It's just ravaged. And so the king says, first thing, man, like any good leader, how can I help? And Nehemiah's like, man, I need to go home. And he didn't know if the king would let him home. But not only does the king let him go home, he sends him letters. Hey, protect him. Nobody touch him. Here's letters that we're going to get you timber for wood and different things. So he takes all these letters home. And so he's protected. He's going to be safe. And he's going to have the equipment he needs to help rebuild this wall. And he knew that God was doing all this. And God had put it on his heart to get back home and rebuild this wall of Jerusalem. And so the rebuild starts. And so Doug's got this side over here, and he's going to replace the sheep gate. And Tim's got the fish gate. And that group right there that delivered the really good pizza, they got this gate. And you guys right there, you've got the wall. And now all of a sudden, man, it's starting to happen. The wall's starting to be rebuilt. And now the enemies are like, wait a second, man. We thought all this was just a facade. They're serious. This may really happen. So now the enemies, they start getting furious. They start getting upset. And they're starting to really challenge Nehemiah now. And so now they're mocking them. They're trying to hurt them. So now it's, hey, we can't all build at the same time. You protect, you build. You protect, you build. And it goes like that, where they just have each other's back to protect themselves and be safe. So half worked, half were on guard. Don't be afraid. And then first time he's the enemies, man, stop. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. They tempt him once. They tempt him twice. They tempt him 3 times. They tempt him 4 times. And my favorite verse in the Bible is Nehemiah 6:3. 5th time he tells them, I'm doing a great work and I will not come down. And so 52 days later, okay, the wall's restored. Okay? And due to God's work, God's hand, 52 days later, this wall is rebuilt and Jerusalem's protected. and his homeland's wall is back. And the wall's still standing today, okay, due to God's work. You know, it made a lifelong impact. And this is where it's really, really deep when you really dive into like the true meaning and the true message of the passage. You know, Nehemiah, number one, he committed to something greater than himself. Number two, he let God direct his heart for the dreams, goals, and visions that honor him. And then number three, surround yourself with people that love you and are committed to helping you achieve the goals and mission you have. And he got them all together. And the biggest things that I think at my next passage is what does this teach us? The opportunity that Nehemiah came in God's time, not his. Number two, he prepared his heart and mind so he would be ready for when God's time arrived. Because you got to be ready. When the moment's there, you got to be ready. And Nehemiah was ready and delivered. And then number three, he needed to be prepared to take on the problems, the doubt, the adversity that would come his way from the outside and from within. And that's why the message, Stay on Your Wall, came to our team. You know, to kind of wrap it up, we gave our team a brick that Stay on Your Wall. And my biggest challenge to our team was, hey, you're 23-0. Man, life is as good as you can see it right now. We're ninth in the country. You represent more than just Ivan Aska, Isaiah Cannon right now, man. You represent this university. We're on the national USA Today, New York Times, everybody. You represent your family. You represent this university. You represent me, your teammates, this community, this Western Kentucky area. So many people. And you're going to be people are going to try to knock you off that wall, and you can't fall. You can founder a little bit, but you can't fall. And those guys, to their credit, they stayed on that wall all year long. And I think at the end of the day, the wall really represents your passion and your purpose. For Nehemiah, his passion and purpose, his passion was his homeland, and God, his purpose was to protect his people. You know, and that's my challenge with you tonight, is what's your passion and what's your purpose? And when you find it, go after it. But understand that there's going to be people kind of try to take it away from you. Distractions, detractors, all different types of people are going to try to take you away from your passion and your purpose. And you've got to be driven and focused and not to fall off your wall. And so that's been a great, great message for me. And it's something I always like to share, you know, when I go and talk, you know, from that standpoint. The last thing I'll share with you, fast forward now 4 years later, and we've got our whole team back. And when your whole team is back, you think you're going to be pretty good, right? I mean, we think we're going to be good. Well, man, we're down in Nashville, and we're coming home from a tournament, and we're 3-3. Or 3-4, I can't even remember. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong with us? And I wake up and I read this devotional, Prepping for a Tsunami. And I still believe to this day, if I wouldn't have read this, I wouldn't have left Murray State and become the head coach at Iowa State 6 months later. When the enemy is successful in creating dissatisfaction within us, we begin to make unwise decisions. What's the solution? How do we combat dissatisfaction? We must prepare well in advance. Some years ago, I was in Sri Lanka when a tsunami hit. Complete areas were wiped out because buildings were built right on the ground with no foundations. But as we drove through the wreckage, I noticed a hotel. The hotel's siding and roof were damaged, but the building was still structurally sound and stood tall. In fact, its location was by the ocean, right in the path of the tsunami, but it was still standing. Why? Under the hotel, strong piling had been driven 100 feet into the earth. This piling was set securely in place long before the tsunami ever hit the placid shores. If a tsunami's coming, can you imagine hurriedly trying to drive piling into the ground? It'd be far too late. The same's true for us. When the enemy comes and tries to get us to feel dissatisfied, if we do not already have the pilings of gratitude and contentment driven deeply in our life, we will fall. And I finished reading that, and I said, dang, we skip steps. We skip steps. Our foundation isn't where it needs to be. And I said, forget this, man. We're going back to day one. Met with the team. I said, hey, guys, we're better than this. Here's the 30-day plan where I got from coach. I don't know what's going to happen between day 1 and day 30, but day 30, we're going to be really freaking good. And day 1, just like I told y'all, best practice of the year. Day 7, kicked them out. We had pictures that day, and the SID said afterwards, goes, yeah, I knew I had to tell the Murray Times, man, they probably need to come back another day. This isn't a good day for pictures, you know. But as we were building, we were starting to win. We were starting to win. And by day 30, we had won about 7 or 8 in a row. By the end of the year, we had won 25 in a row, and we were top 25 in the country. And so I really believe that was the difference. There's no question. Our guys, when you heard them in interviews, they would just say, drive the piling, build the foundation. And that's my challenge as I leave tonight is, man, build your foundation. We get so caught up in right away, and I think this is one of my mistakes at Iowa State. You've got a good team back right away. We got to win. You got to set your foundation because the storms are going to hit you. And your foundation's got to be set because it's coming in your family, your job, your kids, in all different areas. And so I challenge you to make sure you have a strong foundation to weather the storms and weather the tsunamis in your life. So thank you, guys.